What's up, guys? So, we finally had the race at Darlington yesterday. I'm going to talk a little bit of my thoughts on the race. I normally don't do race reviews and things like that. I have done them in the past, but usually when there's something extra going on, not just to cover a race. That's not really what I do. But in this particular case, because of how important this race is, I wanted to give my thoughts on that. I do want to point out that while a lot of people in the community are talking about the importance of these races and how big that race was yesterday, I was talking about this over 3 weeks ago. So this is what I meant when I was talking about this golden opportunity that NASCAR has to get a lot of people to watch the sport and introduce them to NASCAR and how important it is. I talked all about that and how important it is to promote the sport and do what they can to get people to watch. You're never going to have another opportunity like this ever again. This is literally once in a lifetime. So it's good to see that, a lot of people are talking about it like I was, um, 3 weeks ago. So basically, the race overall, I have to say, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. The race itself, I thought was pretty good. It was a solid race. There are a couple of little things that I'm going to critique, but nothing major. There's no for the most part, it was mostly really good stuff. The race was entertaining. There was a lot of passing, in my opinion. I saw passing all day throughout the field. And if you had a good car, you could kind of fall back and work your way back up if you had to. So that's, to me, the biggest thing that I got from the race as a positive. Especially compared to recent history. Everybody's complaining about the way these races are and the aero and not being able to pass, all that stuff. A lot of it had to do with the fact that it's Darlington, and Darlington is a unique track. It does wear tires out, and the configuration of the track, you really can't hold it wide open, you know, all the way. And the more laps you run, the less throttle time you have. That always produces great racing. So I'm really happy with it. The broadcast I thought was, I really couldn't. There's just one thing I'm going to mention, but other than that, it went off almost without a hitch. And I gotta say kudos to Fox, Fox Sports, all the people involved in getting this together so that they can broadcast the race the way they did. It actually felt like a normal race, and I think that's the biggest compliment I could pay to the whole everyone involved with the broadcast is that yeah, there was some of the obvious things they had to mention, and but honestly, once the race got going, you forgot that you were watching, that it wasn't a normal broadcast. Even the fact that there weren't any fans there, it was not something that was constantly on your mind. I'm only speaking for myself, but I quickly forgot about that. I was all into the racing. So I got to give high marks across the board to NASCAR, the way they put this together, the racing. Most of the drivers did a fantastic job. They put on a good show. There was lots of passing, and the broadcast was great. So, getting into some detail about the broadcast before I talk about the actual race, there is one thing I would like to see sprinkled just a little bit more throughout the broadcast. There was only one moment, and I talked about this, in an earlier video about the broadcast, what I'd like to see. Keeping in mind that you're getting a lot of first-time viewers and people who don't really know much about NASCAR, you should try to sort of gear it a little bit more towards uh, teaching them. Not of everything, but some of the basics. Now, early in the race, the one of the big issues were that a lot of drivers, the splitter on the cars were bottoming out on the racetrack. So those of us who follow NASCAR or know a lot about these things, we understand what that means. You know, when the splitter's riding on the track, the tires don't have as much grip. It's harder the handling of the car goes down, and it's hard to turn. So it's important not to have this. You know, you want the splitter as low as possible, but not actually making contact with the track. But people who are watching for the first time don't really know anything about cars or the engineering aspect of NASCAR. They did do what I refer to as one of those animations where they actually show you a part of the car and actual working mechanical parts and what they do and the type of things that the pit crew does to adjust the car for the driver. And personally, I love things like that because I love engineering. Anything that shows how things are built, put together, how they work. Uh, I love stuff like that. That's always very interesting to me. But I think if you're a first time viewer and you hear these guys talking about the splitter and how the car's bottoming out on the track, they don't know what that means. So you got to keep that in mind. So it was great that they showed that animation. They did show it, and they showed the what they call a packer, and it goes right above the shock, and basically it's a spacer. You could call it a spacer as well, but it's they call it a packer too. And you could kind of stack as many as you want in there, depending on how you want to change the ride height. So if the car's bottoming out and it's not that bad, they would probably use one packer. It's like a certain thickness, but they showed it in the animation, and it slides right into the shaft of the shock. And they explained that it doesn't let the car go down as far. And that's awesome. Like, so if you don't understand what's going on and you hear them talking about this problem, but you see the animation, you can put two and two together and you get it. You know, it's I think it's extremely helpful to people watching. So I love that they did that, but you never saw anything like that again throughout the entire broadcast. So I would like to see more of that sprinkled throughout, right? I'm not saying do it 1,000 times, but throughout the race, when they're pitting, when there's an issue on the track, have these little animations that you can show people. Like when they talk about, a couple of times throughout the race, they mentioned how a couple of these guys had the track bar raised up on the car. Show an animation of the track bar, where it's located, what it does to the car, how does it help, how does it make the car looser, how does it make the car tighter. Those things are vital to taking a first-time viewer and getting them to kind of, okay, I get it now. You know what? And it really feels good, right? When you learn something and it's educational, but it's also entertaining, and it's happening real time during a race, and you can get it. Now when you hear these guys talk, you know what they're talking about. It's a good feeling, and as a viewer, if it's your first time following NASCAR, you actually walk away feeling like I learned something, and it was entertaining. Those things are very key to getting people who watch for the first time to kind of want to come back and watch again. If you have people come and watch and don't fully get what's going on, some of those people who might have come back to watch another race may decide, yeah, it's, a lot of it is kind of entertaining, but a lot of it is I just don't really understand what's going on. It is what it is. When something else is available, I'll go back to watching baseball or something else. It's very crucial that right now you check off all these boxes. And they did a fantastic job. I am not complaining. I don't want people to say that I'm being negative. I actually think they did a fantastic job across the board with the broadcast. It's just a tiny bit of criticism that says it's not. I'm not even actually criticizing that they did something wrong. I'm actually criticizing that they should do more of something they did that was right. And that animation they showed early on, I want to see more of that. That was good stuff. So I know that a lot of you guys, like myself, who know all this stuff already, you might feel like I know this stuff, I don't need it. But it's not about us. It's about welcoming these new viewers, and sort of helping them along and saying, hey, this is what the sport's about, and this is what's happening, so that they don't feel lost. Once you understand what's going on, it completely changes how you view the sport. So that's very important. I want to see more of that sprinkled throughout the broadcast. But other than that, they did a fantastic job. Jeff Gordon has grown on me a lot. He's really a lot better than I thought he would be. But I have to say, I'm looking forward to Clint Boyer retiring and going to the booth. Because the combination with him and Jeff Gordon, to me, is gold. Clint Boyer has really, I've become a fan. I'm not a fan of him as a driver. I don't know what it is. I just don't care. But as him, on a personal level, as a personality, the guy's great. He's funny, and he's entertaining without feeling like it feels natural. It doesn't feel like he's trying too hard. Like, there are other people that I've seen. I don't want to name names. All right, I'm going to name one. Michael Waltrip. He's a type of guy that you could love him or hate him. Like, there's no in between. And there are moments where I do like him, but there are also moments where I feel like he's doing too much. And it doesn't come across as natural. With Clint Boyer, he's just a natural personality. And I can't wait to see him in the booth. I think, if I was Fox, I would definitely be trying to encourage him to get in the booth as soon as possible. I mean, I don't know how long he's got left on the contract, whatever. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's a lot of potential there. With him and Jeff Gordon together, from what I saw with their iRacing stuff, that to me was, that's what made those events worth watching. So, getting to the race itself, right? Like I said, it was entertaining. The beginning of the race was really the most curious part for me because they didn't practice, they didn't qualify, they went in there cold. The cars were all set up based on, computer telemetry and notes, I guess, from the last time they were there. So they make calculated guesses on how they want to set the car up. They use, information from, past races. And honestly, I was expecting to see a lot of cars really on the edge of being out of control. We didn't really see that. Like I said, there were some cars that were the splitter was a bit low, but it was manageable. You didn't really see out of control driving except for one person. I'll talk about him in a second. But I loved how the race was able to come on, and it felt like a normal race. And I think this presents a valuable opportunity for NASCAR and all these owners to get together and say, do we really need all of this practice time that we've been, the 3 practices, you got the 2 main practices and then happy hour. To me, I'm not saying they don't need practice. I'd say 1 hour of practice and qualify. That's all you really need. You need some practice to shake the car down, to work out any bugs, any car. You never know if there's a problem with the car. You don't want to find out on the first lap of the race. So you want a little practice, right? I think 1 hour practice session, like the happy hour session, is good enough. Get rid of those other two big practice sessions. There's a lot of fuel, tires, manpower wasted in these practice sessions, and I don't really think it's necessary. I really don't. And I think that that's a big way for NASCAR teams to save a lot of money. And I do think that it would also kind of help these smaller teams a little bit because, the more money that has to be spent in any area of NASCAR benefits of the big teams, because that's where the little teams start kind of running out of options. So 1 hour practice, qualifying, and you run what you ran on qualifying. That's what you race in. No qualifying setup and then go back to your race setup. No. Once you qualify, you lock the car up until the race. That's the way it should be done. And I think 1 hour practice is more than good enough. These guys were able to get a race on, and it almost went out completely without any hitches. So if they're capable of doing that, especially at a track like Darlington, which is not an easy track to set up, to me that's a big positive for NASCAR and for these race teams and these owners. If I was an owner, I'd be getting together with NASCAR and I'd be saying, hey man, we don't need all these practice sessions. Let's do 1 hour practice and qualifying together and then lock the cars up until race time. You could save a ton of money that way. And all this extra practice, I just don't think it's necessary. So that's a big positive that we got from this. A lot of silver linings can come from a bad situation, and that's one of them. So moving forward with the race, I have to say, Ricky Stenhouse, I think he's going to be out of a ride once his contract's up. I don't know how long his contract is with that 47 team or JTG Racing. I don't think there's no way they're going to renew that contract unless he shows a night and day difference in his driving style, which I don't see it happening. I don't think he has that in him to just become a different type of driver. He is overly aggressive. Now, he does have talent, but I don't see the type of talent that would justify having to fix all these wrecked race cars. I just don't. That's why Jack Roush got rid of him, because the money is adding up, the expenses to fix these cars every week, and it just seems like he's involved in everything. He does drive extremely overly aggressive. And there's a difference between getting everything you can out of a car and just going overboard. And I don't think he knows how to find that fine line. He is somewhat talented, but look around. There's a lot of young talent, which I will talk about in a minute. A lot of guys that want a better ride and don't have that opportunity. That 47 car is not a top tier car by no means, but Buescher was pretty competitive in that car. They aren't a bottom tier team either. They're somewhere in the middle. I think they're kind of somewhere with the Childress organization. Childress just isn't a top tier team. That it is what it is, but they've been able to show some competitiveness. But that's where I see that 47 car. They just can't afford to keep a guy like that wrecking race cars. The guy wrecked on the first lap, and it wasn't even something you could give him an excuse for. He took it 4 wide, and he was at the bottom. So it's not like he was in the middle or at the top. He was the one making it 4 wide, dive bombing, in a place like Darlington, where even though it looks like it's a wide track, it's a very narrow track. Most of that asphalt is not raceable. So Some of these guys were getting pretty low on that apron, but he took it four wide. That was an incredibly boneheaded move, and I'd be pissed off if I was an owner and I'm like, or a sponsor. They had to be pissed off. I mean, could you at least get us to halfway through the race before you wreck? We want exposure. People are watching this race in bigger numbers than we've seen in a long time. Sponsors want exposure. This is why they spend money. And you're pulling a boneheaded move like that. So, I mean, I don't want to kill the guy. I don't have anything against him. I don't see sustainable employment. I don't. He's somewhat talented, but is he that talented? A lot of his, he has shown speed at times, right? But a lot of it is over aggressiveness. If you're really aggressive with these cars, you can get speed out of them for 2 or 3 laps or for a short period of time, and then the car goes to hell. You'll blow a tire. You have to learn how to manage the car. Get the most you can out of it without going over the top. That takes a lot of skill. I'm not sure he has that level of skill. And you look at somebody, and Jack Roush, speaking of Jack Roush, he had Mark Martin, one of the best low-key drivers that the sport's ever seen, right? He was great, but you never really saw the type of crazy, over-aggressive driving with him. He kind of just took what the car gave him, worked on it all day, got it better and better, and at the end of the race, he was up challenging for the win or for a top 5. That's the type of thing that you can't teach. And if you don't, Stenhouse is not a rookie. If he hasn't learned by now that he's got to back off a bit, he's not going to learn that. I don't see it happening. And I'm telling you now, if from here to the end of the year, if he doesn't stop at least wrecking cars and getting a halfway decent finish, I mean, I don't see him sticking around. And there's other guys that are talented that deserve a seat. So Jack Roush had Mark Martin in his stable, so he knows the value of a driver like that, who takes care of equipment, who gets the most out of the car, and is there at the end. And then he's watching Stenhouse wreck all his race cars and being over aggressive. He's like the opposite of Mark Martin. So a guy like Jack Roush is gonna knowing that is gonna be like, I can't keep him around. That's why he let him go. The guy showed some speed from time to time, and he has a knack for the restrictor plate tracks. He does have a knack for it. But even there, he's over aggressive. And I think it's almost like winning when he finally won. It was almost like the worst thing that could happen. Because it just seems, right? Maybe it's just me, but it seems like he became worse with his over-aggressiveness after winning. It's like once he won, he felt overconfident. And he felt like, I can push even harder now because I know I can win. I've done it. It's weird to say that, but maybe winning actually made him a worse driver. I know it doesn't sound like it makes sense, but his mentality, if you watch the way he attacks these races, especially restrictor plate races, he's definitely a far more dangerous driver after having won at a restrictor plate track. So those are my thoughts. I'm not going to be shocked if he's out of the Cup Series. At least he may have to go down, to Xfinity or something sometime in the near future. There's a lot of young talent, and these guys are actually showing a lot of promise. So now we go to what I was going to talk about. Nemechek, John Hunter Nemechek, and oh my God, why am I not remembering his name? You guys know who I'm talking about. He drove the Childress car, number 8. Oh my God, does it start with an L? I don't want to look it up. You guys know who I'm talking about. But these guys, they're talented. They ran competitive all day. It wasn't like a fluke finish. They both finished in the top 10. These guys are good. And they're not driving top level equipment. So I'm really impressed with those guys. You don't think that JTG is looking at these guys and looking at Stenhouse? It doesn't look good. And Stenhouse has a lot more experience than they do. So I'm really impressed with these young guys. And before he wrecked, all the Hendrick cars did great. They ran awesome. So there was a lot to like in the race. I saw a lot of excitement. For me personally, I'm going through a rough time, and I don't see it changing because my two favorite drivers are Suarez and Wallace, and they struggle like they're gonna struggle every fucking week. That 43 car never seems like it's gonna just get over the hump and get to that next level. They're just mediocre. They build mediocre cars, and that 96 car, oh my God, it's gonna be torture watching Suarez struggle. I can only imagine how he feels, but what are you gonna do? Uh, that's just me personally, but I'm sure a lot of you guys really enjoyed the race. Really solid throughout. Those are pretty much my thoughts. Love the broadcast, and I'm so excited that it's only a couple days for the next race. Midweek, Wednesday night, back at Darlington. I'm so excited for this. We're going to have a couple of midweek races this season. I really want to see how the ratings, how they do with the ratings midweek, especially this week. Hopefully more people get into it and realize that this race is happening Wednesday. And I hope they do well with the ratings. I think the Sunday's race did really well with the ratings, far above what we've seen in recent years at this time of the year. I think they could do better, to be honest. They just have to keep pushing. And if I was scripting the race, right, I loved it. And NASCAR fans, I'm sure, appreciated it for what it was. But for a new viewer, like if I could have scripted it, I would have had two things that would have put the race over the top. And it would have been, I think, fantastic for brand new viewers. One, I would have had a close finish at the end, two cars fighting to the end, to the finish line. But you know what? Sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't. It's part of racing, and I don't have a problem at all with the way the race finished. I enjoyed it. But just for new fans, I'm talking about new viewers, that would have been cool to be able to have that, that dramatic finish. That would have been nice. And the other thing I would have, and this is really can't happen, especially with the way what's happening now. But have one of those finishes where you have a big confrontation after the race, a fight, at least these guys pushing and shoving like, we've seen in recent years. That would have also spiced things up. And imagine a new viewer watching that. I'm sure they would have enjoyed that. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just throwing stuff out there that would have been cool. Like, those are the only things that I think would have made it better. But really, I'm happy with the race. It was a solid race. Drivers passing each other all day. Ryan Newman, kudos to him. I think Ryan Newman is one of the more underrated drivers that we've had in the past 20 years. The guy was great at Penske. I remember him as the Rocket Man, winning. I don't even know how many poles he won, but he was fantastic. And I don't know. I guess Penske let him go, whatever. But if he would have stayed with Penske, I think he could have won a championship, maybe. Who knows? But the guy's a bull-nosed, tough driver, and I got a lot of respect for him. And he really did a great job yesterday. He was very competitive all day. There were like 2 times where he ended up going to the back. One, I think he spun out, where he had a tire go down. And I don't know if he got caught speeding. I don't know if it was him. In either case, at the end of the race, he finished 15th, and he was fighting. That's not bad at all. Matt Kenseth also had a great finish for the 42 car. So I really liked everything. I want to know what you guys think about the race. What do you think about the broadcast? And let me know what you think. I look forward to your comments. Later.